What's up, everybody? I keep wondering if I should add a like an intro sequence to this, like start off the episodes a little more uniformly. But let me know what you think in the comments below. But today, what we are actually working on, we got no dash. So today we're going to be working on the dash. Okay, so to catch everybody up to where we are right now, this dash is essentially as simple as I could make it. It's just 90 degree with a hump. That hump is there to accommodate the S2000 cluster that will sit right behind there. So we'll cut this out later before we clear it. I also have two AEM gauges, a wideband gauge and a boost gauge. I'm unsure if I'm going to put them in here or if I'm going to put them in the center console piece that I'll build later on. But just like the body of the 240Z, basically what I did was hit it with an extra layer of resin, sand that flat, hit it with another layer of resin, and sanded it flat again. I used 120 grit sandpaper, and then just took my time, make sure everything's completely flat, because otherwise you'll see like wobbles and waves. Since I'm using matte clear, it's not actually as noticeable as if it was like full gloss clear, but I just like matte carbon a lot more. So basically where we are right now, I marked a little spot. That's basically half the middle of the dash. I have little tabs on the dash bar that runs across the cage, and the dash is basically going to bolt into these, and then it's also going to bolt up here into these little things where the factory dash mounted. So I'm going to be cutting the dash in the center here, and that's basically for two reasons. One, so I can take the passenger side off and get to all my electronics really easily instead of having to crawl under and, you know, that whole jazz if something does go wrong. But the other reason is the edge of the dash where it wraps around this bar actually obviously couldn't slide forward in because it's wider than this opening right here behind it. So this whole section back here, everything behind here I would have to cut off, and then I'd have a big hole. So I'm going to cut it in the center. I'm going to put a little reinforced piece of carbon underneath the main section of the dash that holds the cluster, and then it'll bolt in, so I can take just this side off and leave this side if I want to or whatever. But I can get it in and out, which is the main thing. And then after we do all the trimming, I'll trim this, trim the edges a little bit, get a little bit of some mounting tabs I'll have to build for the back, and then once we have it all set up, then we'll run into the paint shop and we'll matte clear it, throw the cluster and maybe the gauges in once I decide what I'm doing with that, and then install it. That's the game plan. I'm going to start by marking the center line in the dash. I'm going to take my 4.5 inch cutoff wheel, slice it down the center, and then I'll trim up the edges a little bit with the grinder. Now that the dash is cut in half and trimmed, I need to make a shelf for the passenger side of the dash to actually bolt into the driver's side. So what I'm going to do is take a random piece of carbon stock I just had laying around, cut it to length for both the front and the top of the dash, sand those pieces with 80 grit, 1-minute epoxy and run a bead along each piece. And then use my clamps to clamp them together. I'll let the top dry for about 5 minutes, then I'll move on to the front and do the exact same thing. Okay, now that I have this lip made, the passenger side can actually bolt onto it. It'll stay lined up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clamp them together in place, drill some holes straight through them just to line it up. And then I'm gonna throw some rivnuts in this side of the dash so I can just run bolts through them. And then when I take the passenger side off, the dash can, on the driver's side, can stay still. Now that all of the holes have been drilled on both sides of the dash, I need to be able to fasten them together. And to do that, I'm going to use this. This is a rivnut gun. It's one of the nicer ones, actually. This thing comes with a bunch of different little cases like this, and they're for different threads. So I'm using M4. So all I gotta do is put this head on here. Cool. And so what this basically does is, it's got threads on this guy right here. You take a rivnut, you can see that, and it has like little grooves on here where it'll actually grab the material you're putting it through. So you push this through whatever material you're trying to keep this fastener in, and then crank this, and you should be able to see. Should mushroom out. There we go. Keep hitting the camera, but it's whatever. So this is about halfway pulled, but you can see. So the new material will be, well, so the material this will be sitting through would be right in here. And then I'm going to be using one of these little Allen head tapered bolts. Screw right in. So this side will stay in the driver's side of the dash, and these will go through the passenger side and bolt them together. All right, so that's the 2 dash pieces finished. The other one's in the other room right now. I'm gonna move it over here, but I'm just gonna matte clear all this stuff. Front lip, 2 front flares as well. Arm's still broken, wrist. I'm gonna be getting this thing off next week though, so super pumped about that. Also, peep the 6 shirts. I got this and another shirt I designed, available on my website, industrygarage.com. So if you want a shirt, I'm gonna represent. Times is crazy. Virus is out here. We're still working. All right, so the dash is all cleared. That's pretty much it for this episode. Huge shout out to Fiberglass, like always, for supplying the carbon and everything for this build. And also a huge shout out to everybody that buys parts through industrygarage.com, supports me in the build. That's where I get all of the funds to keep this thing rolling. But without further ado, here's some cinematic-ish footage of the dash.